Now I know it's been quite a while, but it's time yet again for another selection of pickups. Another selection of video games coming into my collection for me to play, because if you know anything about me, I don't just pick up games to sit in a dusty collection. I only buy the games that I want to play. Now I do have a lot to get through, and I'm looking at maybe 7 different systems over a whole range of different generations. And if you're interested to see what I've picked up over these last few weeks, then you just wait until after these. Now, as I said, I've got quite a bit to go through, so I'm not going to drag my heels here. We'll be doing this in my usual format of the newest games and then working my way back to that juicy retro at the end. So let's start straight away with the PlayStation 5 and the Chant. Now, the Chant isn't a game that I've played, it's a horror game. It's not usually my cup of tea, but when Jen over at Retro Rivals advises you to play a horror game, I think you should take her advice and pick it up, and that's what I've done. It is October after all, so the Chant PlayStation 5 coming into the collection, where it will remain forever. Whether I play it or not is another matter. Next up, and still for the PlayStation 5, we have something a bit more close to home for me, and that is Star Ocean: The Second Story R. It's an action JRPG. Yes, I do prefer turn-based JRPGs, but I will delve in, especially with these remasters and HD 2D remasters, especially at that. This one has been getting a lot of hype, especially from the likes of Chicken Fillets and Paige over at Frame Trooper, so it's into the collection now, where it will remain forever more. Next up, and still for the PlayStation 5, is a game that I had to go all the way over to the land of the rising sun for, because it is Like a Dragon Garen, the man who erased his name. Now, I don't know if you know me that well, but if you do, you'll know that I absolutely adore the Yakuza games. Well, I have done since I played them all 2 years ago. For the first time, sat down, played every Yakuza game. Didn't get this one in launch because I don't like to get digital. I won't not get digital, but I knew there was physical coming out in Japan. I waited until I could get a copy. So glad I did. Heartily recommend this to anyone who's played the Yakuza games before, and if you haven't, then go back and play some Yakuza Zero and start your journey yourself. Next up, we're moving down a generation and away from PlayStation and onto the Switch, because I did pick up this double pack, this 2-in-1 double pack of Coffee Talk and Coffee Talk 2 Hibiscus and Butterfly. Now, it's not a game that was really on my radar, but my good friend Pete over at Pete Fighter 2 said he loved sitting down and just chilling with this game. And you know what, see, when you play a lot of JRPGs or even action games, fighters, shooters, sometimes you just need a little quiet game to sit down, chillax a bit, and this is what I think this will do for me. All I'm going to have to do in this game is make people coffee and give them good chat. So Coffee Talk coming into the collection where it will stay forever. Staying with the same generation, but moving back over to Sony and the PlayStation 4. And the first game that I picked up for the PlayStation 4 is the Survivalist. Now, this is not a game that I've played before. I'm quite aware of them, like this and the Escapists. 2D pixel art, a little survival game. I absolutely love survival games when I get the chance to play them, when I can drag myself away from JRPGs. But this one caught my eye when I saw it out on the shelves. So why not? I'm going to build, explore, survive and train monkeys. Kinda sounds a wee bit like work as well. So Survivalist coming into the collection where it will remain forevermore. Next up, and still for the PlayStation 4, we have Transport Giant. Be a Transport Tycoon, and that's what dragged me in, because I absolutely love Transport Tycoon. It was a game that I played in the mid-90s. I played it to absolute death. Can't really play it at the moment. My PC's a bit too modern for it, which is a shame. I am working on getting myself a Windows 95 or a Windows 98. I might go as far as a Windows XP PC, just so I can play some of the games that I love to play on the PC. But I picked up this as a sort of stopgap. Now, this has the graphics that you would expect from it, but the gameplay just not there yet. I might sit down with it, give it a bit more time. I just might need to work out the mechanics a bit better, but at the moment it's not quite what I was looking for, but it will stay in the collection forever. Now, very much like transport management sims, I do like a good war strategy sim, and with Nobunaga's ambition, I'm hoping that's what I have in this. I have loved strategy war games, especially set in Edo Japan and around that era, for so long now. I think I can probably go back to the PlayStation 2 when I first played Kessen, moved on to Kessen 2, Kessen 3, love that style of game. I'm hoping this lives up to the hype that I've built for it up in my mind, but it's in the collection now, where it will remain forevermore, and it will certainly be getting played fairly soon. Next up, still for the PlayStation 4, is a bit of an odd one because we have Football Tactics and Glory. Now, I know a lot of people out there will be saying, a sports game, Pixel, what are you doing? Well, this is not just a sports game, this is a strange little number. It's a strategy RPG football game or soccer game if you're from across the pond. I've put a couple of hours into this now. Well, I think I put about 5 hours into it. It's a very interesting concept. To explain it, I think I would probably describe it to someone who, well, from the UK anyway, is video game Subbuteo, but you level up your characters and level up your team. It's really quite interesting. That's all I'm going to say about it just now. Please don't judge it on its graphics. Its graphics are absolutely horrific, but Football Tactics and Glory has kinda caught my attention. I think it could be a little bit better. I think it's a little rough around the edges in places. But at the moment, yeah, it's scratching a niche that I didn't know I had. Next up, and it's another RPG, but a CRPG, a computer RPG, and we have the Dungeons of Nahulbuk, or however you pronounce that, the Amulet of Chaos Chicken Edition. Now this looks like a typical dungeon crawler, you know, your Diabolos and the like. One thing being, the humour's supposed to be a bit tongue-in-cheek. Haven't had a chance to pop it in and play it yet. I will get round to it as soon as possible. I do have another game coming later on today that hasn't made this video, but later on today that will probably take up a lot of my time. You will see that soon. But the Dungeons of Nahulbuk, the Amulet of Chaos Chicken Edition. Looking forward to giving that little dungeon crawler RPG a try. Now, last up for the PlayStation 4 is a game that Eddie over at Rollercore has been banging on about for years to me, and that is Odin Sphere. It's not a game that I played before. I'm quite surprised I didn't dip into it. It's an Atlas published game and it's vanillaware, so the graphics are fantastic, as you can imagine. This is a PlayStation 4 port, I suppose you could call it, because it was, I think it was upgraded. This is why it's called Leaf Razor, or whatever that Nordic term or pseudo-Nordic term is meant to mean. You can play the classic version of the game, or you can play the modified version of the game. I gave a quick dip into the classic version. It's not my cup of tea normally, but I'm going to sit down, give it its chance, because Eddie doesn't steer you wrong. So it's into the collection, where it will remain forevermore. So we're moving down a generation and back over to Nintendo and onto the Nintendo Wii, because I did pick up a game I've been after for a while, and that is The Last Story. Now, I do believe this is one of Miss Walker's games. Anyone who doesn't know Miss Walker, it was a development team that broke away from Square and decided to make their own JRPGs, Last Story being one of them. Now this one seems to get mixed reviews. I know Joey over at Total Level absolutely loves this game. I know other people who think it's not that hot, but I'm going to give it a go. Miss Walker game, it's a JRPG, it's exactly what I want to be playing anyway, so The Last Story coming into the collection, where it will remain forevermore as well. Next up, we're staying with the same generation, but moving back to Sony and the PlayStation 3. So Josh over at Drinking Games with Josh will be quite happy that I picked up some PlayStation 3 games, and the first one, Yakuza 4. Now I don't need to pick up Yakuza 4 for the PlayStation 3, because I've got the complete collection over on the PlayStation 4. I don't need it to play. I have, however, fallen in love with this series, and I'm just going to buy every Yakuza branded title, game, whatever, that I come across. It does mean that I'm going to be double dipping on games. That doesn't matter when it comes to certain franchises such as Final Fantasy for me, and Yakuza 4. Well, I just had to buy it, I'm sorry. Had to buy it, get it into the collection where it will remain forever, even though I might not play that version, but you never know, I might sometime down the line. And next up for the PlayStation 3, it's another Yakuza game, but a bit of a heavier hitter this one. This is Yakuza Dead Souls. It's a game obviously that was never really on my radar at the time, because I only started playing the Yakuza games about 2 years ago. This one I wouldn't have looked at twice regardless, because it looks like some sort of cheesy first person or third person shooter, zombie shooter. That's exactly what it's going to be. It's going to be a third person zombie shooter in the Yakuza universe, and I can't wait to play it now. Can't wait to play as my favourite characters from the series, but loaded up and taking out zombies. So Yakuza Dead Souls, a bigger hitter coming into the collection, and it's definitely going to stay there forever. Next up, we're moving down the generation but staying with Sony, and I picked up Maai Kingdom. Now, it's not a game that I really had on my radar at all. It's just one that I came across out in the wild. It's a strategy tactical RPG, exactly my cup of tea. Haven't played it before, so it was a must pick up for me. I do have a goal. If I have any goal whatsoever, it's to play every single JRPG ever made. I know it's a very unrealistic goal, but Maai Kingdom is definitely on the list if I want to complete that goal. But Maai Kingdom into the collection, I'll get round to playing it and no doubt have some words about it later down the line. Next up, and still for the PlayStation 2, is a Konami game that came out of the blue for me. Never heard of it before, but when I saw that box art and that name, Police 24/7, I just had to pick it up. Looking at the back box art, it does look a bit GTA, but you're playing as a police officer. Sounds pretty interesting. As most of the games that I pick up, it all comes nice and complete. Haven't played it yet. I'm very curious to play this, obviously, because that's why I picked it up. I don't pick up games unless I intend to play them. When I get round to playing this one, I'm sure I'll be able to share some words with you. And if you know about this game, if this is a game that you've played, then drop down into the comments and let me know. Let me know if I should be playing it sooner rather than later. It's not an RPG. I have got some big RPGs that are coming out still this year that I want to knock off. But if this should bump it even for a few hours, let me know down in the comments. And last up for the PlayStation 2, we have a game that I've been after for, 20 years now, and that is Succubus III. This completes the PlayStation 2 Succubus set for me. It's been a long time coming, and as you'll probably guess why, it was only released in Japan and the United States. Taking a while to get a copy of this for me. I have it now, nice and complete, and guess what? It's a JRPG, so I've already sat down and played through it. It's very, very different to the other Suikoden games, that's 1 and 2 and 4 and 5. This one, interesting change up in some of the mechanics. Don't want to talk too much about it. It's a fantastic JRPG. I'm not sure I would class it as a pure Suikoden, but you know what? Later on, I'll talk about this game and discuss why I think that way about it. But Suikoden 3, so happy to get that into the collection. Polishes off that lovely little subset, and it will remain there forever. Next up, we're moving away from Sony and back onto Nintendo. Yes, there's been a bit of a Sony Nintendo to and fro this pickups video, but that's the systems that I'm interested in at the moment in the games. And I picked up this little Game Boy Advance game, and it's Breath of Fire. Now, the reason for picking that up is Breath of Fire 3 and 4 are two of my favourite games on the PlayStation. I want to play the originals now. I can play the originals on the Switch because it comes through that, Switch Online service. But I kind of want the originals as well. I want to sit down and play them. Obviously not on the SNES, but I'll quite happily play them on the Game Boy Advance. Next up, we're moving down a generation and back over to Sony for the PlayStation. And the first game that I picked up was another game that came out of the blue, one that I've never seen or heard of before this, and it's Louvre, the Final Curse. Now, looking at the box art and reading the blurb at the back, I got the sort of feel that it was going to be like a Tomb Raider-esque game, maybe even a bit Eternal Darkness. I mean, look it up yourself, or don't look it up yourself, just go and buy it and play this for yourself, but it totally wasn't what I expected of it. I did do some recording of this, my first ever playthrough, a blind playthrough. I might just release that onto YouTube. If you want to see this getting played for the first time by me, drop down into the comments, let me know, because I did record myself playing this for the first time and it wasn't what I expected. So Louvre, the final curse, and yeah, I'm leaving this on. This is a wee bit nostalgic over here now in the UK because we don't have many game stores left like that. That sticker will probably stay, but the Louvre, final curse, into the collection. A little odd one, but I thoroughly kinda enjoyed what I played of it. Next up, and still on the PlayStation, is a game that takes me back to my time on the PC in the mid-90s and the early 90s, and it's SimCity 2000. Absolutely love SimCity. Love SimCity 2000 as well. And what can I say? I just had to pick it up because it's on the PlayStation. I wanted to see how it compares to the PC. Now, it's not going to be, and it isn't as good as the PC. It does a fairly good job, but oh, look at that weighty manual in there. It does a really good job. Hard to control with the controller for a while, you get used to it, but I love SimCity, and it's another game, or a series of games, that along with the Sid Meier games that I would collect regardless whether I could play them or not, regardless whether they were the best ports or not. But it's one of my favourite games, and it's on one of my favourite systems. It was a must to get into the collection, and that's where it is and will stay. Next up, and still for the PlayStation, is another JRPG, no big surprises there folks, and it's Jade Cocoon. It's one of these Ubisoft exclusive cases. I don't really mind too much as long as I've got the game and can play the game. Nice complete copy of the game with the manual. Jade Cocoon's a sort of cross between, I don't know, a traditional JRPG and a Pokemon style game. Actually, when I think about it, it's got sort of a hint of the Persona games in it because you sort of sacrifice creatures to make stronger creatures. If you know the Persona games, you know what I'm talking about. And if you played Jade Cocoon, you probably realise that too. But Jade Cocoon, coming into the collection for the PlayStation, where it will remain forever, and yes, I've already given that a little blast. Now, before I move on to the next physical game pickup, I'm going to show a couple of things that I picked up that weren't quite video games, but really important. Firstly, I got a nice new in-card PlayStation 2 controller. That will be coming out the card. It'll be coming out the card because I'll be using it to play games like Succubus III and other games on my PlayStation 2. I just need memory cards. And then I saw this lovely little red memory card for the PlayStation 2 sitting out in the wild. It came home with me. Now, I did say I wasn't going to show you the next physical game because I did break with my usual rule and I bought a couple of digital games. Now, to justify these digital purchases, I will say this: the first game that I picked up digitally was the Hack GU compilation that you get on the PlayStation Store, and I had enough free points from my Star Sting. And if you're a member of the PlayStation Star scheme, you know that you can earn points towards gift vouchers that you can build up and buy online stuff. I didn't want to see the £15 go to waste, so I just picked up this compilation of 3 PlayStation 2 action JRPGs that I haven't considered buying physically because they're a little bit on the pricey side and I wasn't sure whether I'd enjoy them. Of course, picking up this compilation digitally means I've got a chance to play them very, very cheaply, and now I know I want to buy the physical games. Also on offer in the PlayStation Store was the Disney Afternoon Collection, and it's 4 great games, and I heartily recommend anyone just paying a few pounds to have these classic games on your PlayStation. Such an easy way to play them for anyone. You just get them on your PlayStation, play on a modern TV with your modern controller, absolutely fine. I've got no issues at all with people buying stuff like that online. And last but not least, I did pick up Broken Sword Reforged. Now, Broken Sword Shadow of the Templars was a game that I absolutely loved back in the mid-90s. So much so I moved on with the rest of the series as they pumped out game after game, and when it was announced that Broken Swords Reforged was going to get a digital copy on the PlayStation 5 early, Yes, there will be a physical copy, and yes, I will be buying a physical copy, but I had absolutely no qualms at supporting Rebellion Software by buying their digital game first and then buying their physical game when that releases later on in the year, or maybe at the beginning of the new year. And that is my justification for buying those 3 digital games. Well, it's actually more than 3 digital games. There's 4 on the Disney, there's 3 on the Hack compilation, and of course there's Broken Sword Reforged, which you can play with the new updated graphics and quality of life tweaks that they've done, or you can play the original game as well. Heartily recommend, if you love point and click games, to get Broken Sword played if you haven't already. Now moving back to the physical games, and the last physical game that I picked up is it's one of the newest games that I picked up, but it's still the most retro game that I picked up, because I got my hands on Nightmare for the ZX Spectrum. Now this has been released through Bitmapsoft, and if you want a copy of this, I don't know if there's any copies left. As you can see, this is still nice, new and sealed. You can see in there it's a lovely red cassette. Haven't played it yet, can't talk about it. I know it's going to be much better than the original Nightmare game. Anyone not from the UK won't know what Nightmare is. It was a kids TV show. It was a sort of game show where you had one contestant wearing this mask here. He would go into a green screen room basically. He would walk around, there would be obstacles, and in a monitoring room his teammates would be guiding him to where he had to go to avoid the traps or get the bread to up his health. Hard to explain, but it was like a video game but on a TV show, and I'm hoping this lives up to it. I'm sure it will. I've heard great things about Nightmare for ZX Spectrum. You can check out all the stuff there on bitmapsoft.co.uk if that focuses for you. Probably not, but I'll leave links in the description. But Nightmare for the ZX Spectrum coming into the collection, where it will remain forevermore and be cherished for all times. So there you go my friends, that was my latest pickups, and what did you think of them? Any games in there that you're fond of, have in your collection already, or any games that you've never seen before and have piqued your interest? It may even be the case that you've seen some games in there that you would love to see fired into the sun. Well, if that's the case also, drop down into the comments and let me know, because interaction between you and me, well, that's what makes YouTube special. It does for me anyway. Thank you again for watching as always, and until next time, cheerio!
If you enjoyed this video, why don't you check out the other ones on offer here, and also feel free to subscribe if you want to see more in the future.